Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel as we continue the discussion about the global interstate system. So let me summarize for a while. The global interstate system, or the contemporary global interstate system, as a basis of a relationship among countries in the world, started after the conclusion of the Treaty of Westphalia. The Westphalian Treaty became the basis of the modern interstate system, that we are talking about sovereignty, territoriality, and non-interference. However, the modern or the contemporary global interstate system is being challenged, gentlemen and ladies. So, the number one that challenges the interstate system is the concept of globalization. Why globalization now becomes or threaten this contemporary interstate system? Let's try to look back again of what is globalization. Globalization, broadly defined as the migration of human activities from the narrow confines of nation state to a much larger scale. For example, the integration of national economies to trade, investment, capital flows, labor, migration, and technology. And we are the living testament. Globalization results from the removal of barriers between national economies to encourage the flow of goods, services, capital, and labor. Take a look at, gentlemen and ladies. Remember the concept of globalization. Number one here, removal of barriers between national economies to encourage the flow of goods, services, capital, and labor to the different countries in the world. Another, it helped globalize the world economy, transportation, and communication technologies. This is the result of globalization. What it matters, increasingly, businesses must recognize that their success depends on efficiency and scalability, that is being able to quickly mobilize global resources and reach world market. That's why as of this contemporary world, gentlemen and ladies, okay, if you want to become more successful on your business, whether we like it or not, we must and they should embrace the so-called globalization. But globalization has led economic decision making away from the local control. Why, gentlemen and ladies? Remember, gentlemen and ladies, the principles of the interstate system: sovereignty, territoriality, and non-interference. Sovereignty. The state has the supreme power or authority in the administration within their territorial jurisdiction. However, in the advent of the so-called globalization, in this contemporary world in which most of the countries in the world remove or reduce the barriers of the international trade, it seems the economic decision making will become away from the local control. This is now the challenge of the global interstate system, or the contemporary interstate system, as we face the so-called globalization. In this contemporary world, states are becoming less Westphalian in terms of legal power to intervene in countries. For example, you have European Union, you have United Nations, and the International Criminal Court. It seems that there is no 100% that the nation state itself has the so-called state sovereignty, because of the proliferation of different organizations wherein a lot of countries in the world join this organization, wherein they are trying to give up part of their sovereignty. That this European Union, for example, that is composed of more than 20 states in Europe, wherein part of their domestic affair, I mean, okay, the organization may intervene, as well as the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. Another, globalization emphasizes the interdependence of states and has encouraged the increasing degree of human and material mobility and interaction. Example, international rights movements. It views solving the socio-economic and political problems require collective efforts and restriction on the state's sovereignty. So in this, gentlemen and ladies, because of the advent of globalization, it is now being emphasized the so-called interdependence of the states. That this interdependence of each state in the world encourage the increasing degree of human material mobility, wherein some of the problems of one country to another may be resolved by having an agreement with another state in the world, or it might be some of their, or part, I mean, of their state sovereignty will be, they will give up. Why? This because the Westphalian territoriality is overprotected, imprisoning, aggressive in assertion, and condones of areas of opportunity and zones of contract and cooperation. So in the interstate system, once you have that territorial jurisdiction that is overprotected, it is the nation state has the control over that particular area. Whatever happened to that area, it is the state itself has the supreme authority. However, it has been challenged by globalization because it promotes interdependence among states in the world. Example, intergovernmental organizations have played a role in intertwining the political and economic affairs of nation states around the globe. These types of organization consistently encroach on the concept of sovereignty, United Nations and the World Trade Organization. For example, you have the WTO, as we discuss about the global economy, gentlemen and ladies, how the contemporary global economy started upon the conclusion of the Bretton Woods Conference, wherein there was the so-called the World Bank, the IMF, and it's so-called the GATT, or the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and was replaced the World Trade Organization, which promotes, the World Trade Organization promotes a free market, wherein advising the states as a signatory of the WTO to reduce the international trade barrier. So as you can see, gentlemen and ladies, the interstate system has been challenged by globalization. The principle of the state sovereignty, territoriality, and non-interference or intervention, these principles have been challenged by globalization because they promote interdependence among states in the world. Another, globalization introduces wider webs of transnational governance, new supranational institutions, and new technologies which increase the flows of capital, commodities, people across borders. These are not in line with the conception of the Treaty of Westphalia, which aims to enable governments to control resources and people in a way to determine its economic fortunes. This phenomenon is a challenge of the Treaty of Westphalia, as the border changes are able to devalue state borders in terms of emphasizing supranational or subnational entities. Oh, okay, because of the advancement of technologies, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, the interstate system, the Westphalian Treaty, or the principle that resulted the Treaty of Westphalia, the control of the government over its territory has been challenged. Because there is an increase of the flow of capital, even disrespecting, devalue the state borders because of the technologies that we are using. It doesn't respect the so-called the state border, the movement of people, the movement of the capital flows because of internet connection, for example. And again, The interstate system, the Westphalian system, has been challenged. So the Peace of Westphalia challenges under globalization, to make it short, number one, legal sovereignty is no longer the monopoly of the national governments. Second, the control of physical territory is much less meaningful today, both as a source and a domain of power, because of technologies, gentlemen and ladies. The physical territory, the control of the physical territory is being challenged. It is not anymore meaningful, as they said, because of the advancement of technologies. Third, non-state actors are emerging as the new stars of the global order. Multinational corporations, intergovernmental organizations, for example, those are non-state actors, became a new star of the global order. And this non-state actors may dictate what the state is going to do with their country. Another challenge that the Peace of Westphalia or the Treaty of Westphalia faced. International law is beginning to challenge the supremacy of the state sovereignty. So, because of the Treaty of Westphalia, of this contemporary interstate system, gentlemen and ladies, the creation of the international law. And this international law challenges the domestic law or the supremacy of the state sovereignty in every nation in the world. Another challenge. Westphalian wars are in decline. Non-Westphalian conflicts are on the rise. It is not anymore that you are talking about having the armed forces against the armed forces of another country. And now, the non-Westphalian conflicts are on the rise, especially for the so-called multinational corporations competing with each other to the entire world. And the last, you have the so-called modernization. Okay, this is the example, gentlemen and ladies, of the challenges now. Okay, this is the explanation of those boxes that I read to you about this legal sovereignty is no longer the monopoly of the national governments. Okay, what happened? The emergence of the European Union, for example, and other international government organization. The control of physical territory is not anymore so-called meaningful because of the advancement of technology. And non-state actors, as I mentioned, and you have international law, it's beginning to challenge, gentlemen and ladies, regarding the domestic affair of the state. And the Westphalian wars, okay, are in decline. Non-Westphalian conflicts are on the rise. The new confrontations are economic and informational now. The game has changed, and the protagonists are no longer national governments, but corporations, special interest groups, drug cartels, ethnic mafias, and others. It is not anymore that you're talking about the long time ago during the conflict among states in the world. There is now another war that happened today, gentlemen and ladies. There's a lot of multinational corporations all over the world. And modernization is another challenge. In general, modernization is the process where rural traditional societies are transformed into industrialized and modern. This encompasses not only economic modernization and development of the market infrastructure and technology, but also political modernization and the developed system of interest representation. The process of modernization is an obvious case of dominant countries acting from place of power that allows for strategic positioning economically and politically. Just like United States, just like China, for example. The United States has been doing this for a long time all over the world, and the most current example is the U.S. presence in Afghanistan, the U.S. presence in the Philippines, for example, and the rest, gentlemen and ladies, regarding this so-called modernization and how other countries in the world try to govern. In conclusion, the Treaty of Westphalia created a state system. It ended the 30 Years' War and introduced a few principles in contemporary world. Okay. Principle of non-intervention of one state in the internal affairs of another state, the principle of equality between states, principle of sovereignty of states, and fundamental right of political self-determination. The Treaty of Westphalia is undergoing a historic change. There is now the wave of democratization, the process of globalization since 1945, the creation of the United Nations and international intergovernmental bodies, and humanitarian intervention. This is now the changes that happen in the interstate system in this contemporary world. Change in nature and understanding of sovereignty. Sovereignty is redefined today. State is interdependent because the comfort of this one, it's because of globalization. Nature of sovereignty has changed from one which vests states with certain rights, like the right to non-intervention, to one which grants them certain responsibilities primarily towards its own population. So human rights violation perpetrated by the government, where an international organization may encroach the government itself of the so-called violation of human rights. If you remember, when President Duterte in this Upland Tukang in the drug war, he was charged in the International Criminal Court, wherein the International Criminal Court is trying to investigate which really there is a violation of human rights, and there is the so-called the crime against humanity. However, it argued that Westphalia holds a continuing relevance despite the evolution of its system. The outcomes of Peace of Westphalia founded important norms for the international system and served as a model for contemporary international law and relations. The transformation in the concept of sovereignty has rather reiterated, reasserted, and re-emphasized the obligation and duties of sovereign states with respect to protection and upholding the citizens' right. Okay, so I will stop in this in this in this portion. I will stop this. Then I will continue to discuss on my next video the theoretical perspective of the interstate